Lesson 3, topic, angles. Lesson target, I can measure and classify angles. I can use the bisector of an angle to solve problems. Angle, two rays with the same endpoint. The rays are the sides of the angle and the endpoint is the vertex. So we have two rays. So ray 1, ray 2, they share that vertex. So they share that endpoint. And the inside is the angle measure. So how big that mouth opens up. So I like to think like Pac-Man or an alligator. How big that mouth opens up, it determines how big the angle is. Naming angles. So we name it by all 3 points. Vertex in the middle. So the vertex is the point that the two rays share. So that point that makes the angle. So right here, that would be the vertex. Point C. So that always goes in the middle. So it can be BCD or DCB. So you follow it in order. So you start with B, go to C, go to D, or you can start with D, go to C, go to B. Or you can name it by the vertex only. So this could be known as angle C, but this only works if there's only one angle at the vertex. So if we had something that looked like this, where there were two angles sharing the same vertex, so we'd have this angle right here, the blue angle, and then we'd have this angle right here, the red angle. Since there's two angles at vertex C, we couldn't name them both angle C. We couldn't name either angle C because we wouldn't know which angle we were talking about. So sometimes just to be safe, name it with all 3 letters. Let's practice. Use all 3 points to name each angle. So we have angle, we can start with X, go to Y, go to Z. Or we can do angle CYX. Also, make sure that you have that angle marking in the front because otherwise we also name planes with 3 letters. So this could be mistaken as naming a plane if we don't include those angle markings. So it's always important to be precise with our communication, even when it's written communication. Next one, we have angle Q is our vertex, so Q has to be in the middle, and then we can do PR, or we could do RQP. I would like you to try naming angle 3, so go ahead and pause it. I'm going to pop up a question in Edpuzzle. Try it, and then we'll continue. To name this angle, we could do angle VUT, or we could do angle TUV. But remember that vertex always has to be in the middle, so U has to be in the middle. Angle measurements. So to label angle measurements, we just put an M in the front of that marking. So it's the same thing as naming an angle. We're just going to add an M to mean we're talking about the measurement. So then the measure of angle BCD, so this measure right here, is 80 degrees. So the alligator is opening his mouth up 80 degrees. Different types of angles, we can classify acute angles. So that's between 0 and 90. Right angle is exactly 90 degrees. Obtuse angles are in between 90 and 180, but not equal to either of those. And a straight angle, so like a line, is 180 degrees. Let's practice. Classify the angles as acute, right, or obtuse. I would like you to try this. Pause the video, try it, and then replay to see if you are right. All right, so let's find out the answers. Number 1, we have this angle that looks a little bit bigger than like a right angle. This would be a right angle, so we're going to go obtuse. This angle is definitely smaller than if we were to make a nice right angle, so that's going to be acute. And then right here, we know by this marking right here that it is a right angle. Adjacent angles. Adjacent angles are angles that share a vertex and a side, so they are touching. So these would be non-adjacent angles because while they are close to touching, they're not actually touching. They don't share a side. They have 2 very separate sides. But here, these angles are adjacent because they share this ray right here. So both angle C and angle D share that vertex and that side. So adjacent angles. Angle bisector is a ray that divides an angle into two congruent adjacent angles. So we know that ray JK, just kidding, this guy right here is the bisector of angle LJM. So this angle right here is being cut in half, which means that the two measures, so the measure of angle LJK, so this measure right here, and the measure of angle KJM are equal, which means that those angles are congruent. So that's congruent symbol. So let's practice with our bisector and we'll be done. Ray RQ is the bisector cut in half. Whenever you see bisector, remember, that just means it's chopping it in half, two congruent pieces of angle PRS. So this angle is being chopped in half. Solve for X. So here's our bisector right here. Now this is how we mark congruent angles. You remember how we marked congruent segments with the little tick marks? To mark congruent angles, we use little arcs that are the same. So we know that x plus 40, that angle, is going to be equal to 3x minus 20. So we know that these measurements are going to be the same because those angles are congruent, which means we can just set our two pieces equal and solve for x. 1x needs to move over to join that 3x, so we can subtract 1x on both sides. We have 2x, and then we can move that minus 20 over to join the 40 by undoing minus 20 with plus 20 on both sides. 40 plus 20 is 60. Get x by itself by dividing, undo that multiplication. And we have 60 divided by 2 is 30. So we know x equals 30. Now if you really want to check, you can plug 30 in for x into both of these and make sure your answer comes out evenly. So 30 plus 40 is 70. And then 3 times 30 would be 90 minus 20 is 70. So our answer checks out and is correct. That's all I have for lesson 3. Go ahead and do the practice.